have read AA and thrown it away, and millions of people have read AA and found a great way of life. Yeah? So the meaning is a living book, and I believe it really does a wonderful job of describing the problem, as you'd say. And yet when I was first introduced to it, I was reading about the problem as the problem. That was the dilemma. Yes? The problem itself was entertaining ideas about its activities. With the no sense of that being so, you know. It's just, so the problem was studying the problem. And then I got introduced to this idea. And I went back to the book, and it was totally a new living book. Every time it mentioned the word self, the small s, yeah, I saw it as it just downloaded all new information. It triggered like a whole avalanche of new information about self that I had read it hundreds of times and it never had ignited that, yeah? And then my whole feeling of the program changed. And I had no one to help me change it, yeah, in the program. It just changed. As I was entertaining what was happening, I was entertaining it through the frame of AA. And I saw it like in a new light. Yeah? From all the people, what they had told me, I saw that, not that there's anyone wrong, but something, it didn't fit me. And I felt like, wow, this tastes right. Yeah? And so in the way they describe it in recovery is that the root of the problem for an alcoholic or an addict is the activity of mind called obsessing with self. They tend to look at everything as how it pertains to them, very self-centered, self is the center. It's self-seeking and frightened. So it's moving, but it's afraid what it's moving towards will move away when it gets there, or what it has it will lose. So it lives in a perpetual state of anxiety, and it's agitated, the mind, so it's seeking to get relief. Yeah? And what you really want to get relief from are the effects of alcoholism. And so when people come into recovery, they think heroin or drinking is the problem. Yes? But the book points out to us that those are just symptoms of the real problem, which is alcoholism. And then I found that my first solution to alcoholism was drinking. When I drank, I got relief from this mental state of alcoholism. And it is a mental state. It's just a frame within a bigger frame called self-centeredness. It's just another frame called alcoholism. It's one of the more, I'd say, stronger ones here. Yeah, there's a lot of other people who have different frames, but alcoholism is a really nasty one. When it has the mental process, it creates a lot of suffering, exquisite suffering, for itself and for others who are involved with it. Yeah, it has no discrimination who it hurts. Yeah? If anyone shows up in your life, they are going to possibly be hurt badly by alcoholism, yeah? Not just you drinking. So it's like projectile vomiting, Well, who's ever in the room gets hit. So when you come into recovery, and most people never come in here out of volition, they don't decide to come to AA really. They get forced to. In other words, every square of the game board's been covered, and you've been pushed into a little thing, a little last square, and then suddenly grace occurs, and through like what happened with me, I was just sitting in a caravan, yeah, with another guy who I didn't know, and I'd been drinking for 4 days, and I had drunk myself dumb, yeah. I couldn't put a couple of sentences together. It was like a sitcom TV show, even simpler than that. And I was dumb. I was in a haze of ignorance, and I was just drinking vodka. Yeah? And I didn't even really like alcohol, but I couldn't get drugs. I had no more money. I had no one who would lend me money, and I had no desire to work for any money, so I was drinking. And I was just sitting there. It was like a regular day at the office. No big consequences, no big circumstances. I had been run over by cars, I'd been shot at, nothing like that. It was just drinking waiting for this guy. Hopefully he would have money to come and maybe we could get some drugs. But what happened is I saw this guy and I looked at him and he had a big bulbous nose and varicose veins on his face. And I saw him as a bum, like a bum. And for some reason, when I saw him looking, it looked like he was looking at me like I was a bum. And for some reason, that stopped the selfing, yeah? And something opened up, like a portal, a portal or a hole. I would say to another dimension of mind other than self-centeredness. I call it grace, really. Some grace occurred. And some information downloaded. And it was like a CNN news flash, yeah? No story, just a headline. And the headline was, I'm screwed. Yeah? It was just like, I'm fucked. And I'd been fucked for quite a while, but it was news to me, literally. I was like, fuck, I'm fucked. I mean, everyone who knew me knew I'd been screwed for quite a while, but it was really like, it just seemed to happen to me, It'd been my state for years, but it was like, wow, I'm screwed. And so the alcohol was there, I gave vodka, but I didn't pick it up. And my mind said, yeah, I asked the guy, where's there a phone? Because at that, there was no cell phones back then. And he said, there's a phone down outside. So I went there, I had a couple bits of change, and I called a program of recovery that I had spent 2 years in just 10 months before I graduated. They had told me that period of my life, though it was rather long, was over, everything was going to be great, and it didn't pan out that way. I was back to where I'd been, but worse. So I called them up, and I had some humility. I was startled into some submission, and I asked them, can I come back? I wanted to go back to the program. And they said no. They said, you can't come back. Because they'd been getting my newsletter. They had heard about what had happened to me, I think. And they said, you can come back in a month and get interviewed again, which means they could say no or yes. Yeah? So that was, and then some honesty came in, and I said, hey, I don't think I have a month. Yeah? I don't think I have a month out here left. It's just going to be over physically. I felt terminal, something was going to kaput, yeah? So I called up a woman, and I talked her into picking me back up from the city. And in that hour and a half, I recovered from that moment of clarity. I wanted to drink again and use. But she wouldn't have any of it. And she said, hey, do you want a place to stay tonight? And I did. I was, I was homeless, basically. And I didn't know where I was going to go or be. I had no money. So she says, you want a place to stay tonight? And that seemed very attractive to me. I said, yeah, I do. And she says, you got to go to a recovery meeting. That's the stipulation or the requirement. So I figured, hey, that's 1 hour. And I can do that on my head for a night's sleep. It's a pretty good deal. Yeah. So I said, all right, I'll go. And she took me to my first recovery meeting, 1988, March 21st. And I went in there with no intention of launching onto a life of sobriety. I just was paying my dues, prostituting myself once again to get someplace to stay, which I'm quite used to prostituting at that time, doing this and doing that to get something. But while I was in there, something happened. And what happened was I started to feel different. And it had nothing to do with me feeling different. Something changed, and there was an awareness of it. And I realized over time that that little portal had started a train of circumstances in my life. Yeah, that little 5 minutes of opening had affected 22 years of living so far. It started right there. In just 5 minutes of having selfing stopped, something that seemed to be unchangeable, no matter what consequences. The disease, the way it had me was I was willing to pay any consequence now, not to feel, no, I was willing to pay any consequence tomorrow, not to feel uncomfortable now. Yeah? So the discomfort was paramount to get some relief from. So if I knew it was going to end me up in jail, I didn't care. I wanted to get loaded now and then deal with it later, whatever was going to happen. Yeah? So I sat there, and she picked me up, it was a men's meeting, she couldn't come in, so she dropped me off and picked me up. I went to her house, and when I got home, I tried to sleep, and sort of a miracle happened at night. The next morning I woke up, and that mental compulsion, the incessant urge to get loaded, or really to escape, from this unbearable moment, which wasn't the moment anyway, it was the mental construct of the moment that I wanted to get out of, which is when you try to get out of that, that's being in it, the fucking concept. But I had no idea of that. So something occurred that next morning, and my first thought in the morning was, I didn't have that fear, that clenched fear, wanting to go, oh, let's get some relief. I had a thought, and I said, I don't have till 8 o'clock to get to this next meeting. I didn't know anything about AA, and the people said the night before there was another meeting at 8. I'm not going to last till 8. So I called up the AA hotline. They told me there was a meeting at 12, and I went there. And I've been going to recovery ever since. And that bondage to the idea, at least one of the major effects of the bondage to self in my life was broken, the alcoholism, that incredible loop of making decisions based on self, setting off trains of circumstances that bring you misfortune, you feel you don't deserve, you get resentful, make another decision based on self, more trains of circumstances, more misfortune, more resentment, and you need relief in that loop, so you get loaded against all evidence. You know it's insane, but you can't help yourself. You're powerless. You're addicted to that idea of being a self. But over time in AA, doing this program, what it did for me is it retrieved all of my auctioned off attention, all of my interest that was in the past, keeping secrets and not dealing and confronting amends I had to make and all the shit that I had seemed to have done. Because in this identification of self, you are the doer. You are the doer of all the actions that ever happened through this apparatus. You believe it was you. Even when they say you were powerless over this thing called alcoholism, you still believe you're the doer of all those behaviors. The guilt and shame is quite unbearable. So, by doing the program, that interest and attention, which was all spent in there, past and future, worrying incessantly what was going to happen to me, and then trying not to feel and think about all those shitty things I thought I did. And there were some that I did that there's no way in hell I'd ever be released from that courtroom of my head. I was guilty. That was that. Yes? I didn't give my mother that money when I had it. That was that. There was no if, and, or buts. I was stamped, you're guilty. Yes? So it had to be brought up into a court of life, in a sense, to be annulled. You're not gonna get probation or anything in this court. You're convicted and you're just gonna suffer. So I practiced AA, and it retrieved my attention and interest. I did the steps. The biggest one for me was the 9th step, to make amends to people who I had trespassed against in life. And by making amends, I was freed from that mental occupation all of those events were taking up in my life, All of my space was filled with denying certain events and having like a mental security guard watching it so no one would ever find out and it wouldn't come out and wouldn't leak out into this moment. And then relying on self, which is unreliable, I was in constant fear. And I had lived under its tyranny for years, and I know how it treats the host, like a parasite. If I woke up believing I was self, I was scared shit of what the day was going to entail. Because I usually ended up getting arrested sooner or later. I would go out with the idea I just wanted to have fun, and by 12 o'clock I'd be in the county jail. Shit. I'd get out and I'd do the same thing and expect different results. I'd end up in jail again. And it was surprising, how did this happen to me? I did the same thing that got me in jail before. But it was all going over my head, Because when you're up the ass of self, when your interest and attention is absorbed in that little black hole, for all intents and purposes, you're unconscious here. Totally unconscious. You're driven by, you're being blown by winds, winds of mental states that just use this as a transportation tool, as a way of expressing what they want to express. So someone who was a lovely little kid is a vicious, rabid junkie, yeah? Because you're neither of them. You've been taken over by something that expresses itself through you, yes? Called alcoholism. And all the while, everyone who's been taken over by alcoholism keeps calling all of its expressions their expressions. They don't see the root of the dilemma. You're identified as that, which is way past a level of obsession. When an obsession crosses over and you become identified as that which your mind is obsessed over, that is way, 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 way more comprehensive than obsession. No matter how much I love Coke, I never thought I was cocaine. There was always a sense of separation from Coke. It wasn't like I thought I was cocaine. But I'm thinking I am that, which I'm not. Yes? So identification is unbelievable because, first of all, you never recognize the identification as an extreme form of obsession. You'll recognize some of its other obsessive effects, but you won't see the supreme form of obsession is identification as what you're not. You can't be more obsessed than that. Really. To be obsessed with something and actually become it in a way, that's as far as it goes. You ever see those horror movies where the person knows a starlet, a movie star, and they start dressing up like them and get a wig like them and trying to go out with the starlet's boyfriends, and then realizing it's not working, they kill the boyfriends, and then they want to kill the starlet and take over the starlet's position? That's not even close to what identification as self is like. It's way past that, really. And most people who are under it don't know it. Because everything that goes on is senses it's me that's doing it. Yeah? So what a perfect hideout for, let's say, a parasitical mental system to take over a host that is like a giant steering wheel. It's so easy to drive us because everything it does to us will say, it's me, mine, 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 mine. You'll never question what's taking you over. And if you don't see its identification, the best you can hope for is, like, say, getting therapy for it, teaching it to be more behaved so you don't flip out at the next dinner party. Maybe, just maybe, you'll be lucky enough to have 1 month relationships with other human beings, you know what I mean? And maybe you'll be able to go back to school or whatever, There's not like giant high levels of success. It's just basically, let's not get arrested this week. That was my idea of success, really. When I came out of alcoholism, my idea was not to be arrested. That was a successful life. And we call living on the edge, shooting up and all this shit. But living on the edge is receiving unconditional love. That's unbearable to an alcoholic mind. Because they are so sure that they don't deserve anything. Yes? It's unbearable when someone holds that lovely space for them. Getting run around and getting shot at is nothing. It's really receiving love and recognizing it's okay. You almost want to just implode in a cry, because your whole life has been keeping that out just to be right. You're bad. You're bad. Yeah. So you're like the mouth of the cell door. It's a very small mouth. You let very little in, yet you're bitching for a lot. It's very painful. Because you'll bitch and bitch to have something, but when it shows up, you destroy it. You can't handle it because it's causing you to question how right you are. If you feel you're worthless and someone's valuing you, it's unbearable to that head. Something has to go, and it's usually the person, not your old idea. So I started to practice AA with a zeal. Because when I came in, I realized what the book described as the problem, I had been living it. Yeah? That problem was written, that description of the problem was written in blood, really, in my life. It was so deeply etched, I couldn't believe I had missed it. Yeah? But when I got stepped out and they described what it's like to be an alcoholic, I identified with every freaking description. Every description was my modus operandi out there. So I felt. And so people were saying today, well, why would you want to call yourself an alcoholic? Well, the fact is when you're denying it, yes, when you're denying it, every move you make, the admittance to your innermost core that you are it neutralizes that, yes? So one extreme goes to the other extreme, and then you're placed in a position of neutrality. But you can't seem to get to the position of neutrality from here. There's got to be a total flip over, dualistically, yes? And then neutrality can occur. So the alcoholic can't immediately usually go into, I'm not that, because it's just a mind game to them. They have to go, I'm totally that, an alcoholic, and then they see that that's not so, and they're put in a position of neutrality. But you can't get there from that one pole, I found, yeah? So I just started doing what they said here. And, that's why when I was talking to that guy yesterday, he has a lot of money, he's got a lot of free time, but he doesn't seem to be too happy. So just do some service for someone else. Instead of working on you so much, just help a stranger, and you'll be amazed what will happen to you. There'll be a sample of being out of self, because your interest will be on them instead of you. Yes? That light that's constantly spotlighting you, even in your great noble endeavor of growing, which is just another obsessing with self, will be put on someone else, and you'll feel available for a change. Yeah, you'll be there. And then if you're available, you'll sense the presence that's available, only when and where availability is, which is what we call now. Yeah? And that's the most soothing medicine of all. A conscious contact as that spirit. Not an experience, yeah? Not another phenomena, but a contact. In other words, the seeing of your day is from there. Not the looking of your day finds a spiritual experience, but the seeing of your day is that spirit, yeah? So it's not on the level, for me, it's not on the level of experiences. I don't want experiences. I had a lady that was what they call a light junkie in this group I was in, the Course in Miracles, with this cult I was in. And she was, in that society, she was like held in very high esteem, because she was getting tons of infusions of light and just going off at every meeting and laughing like crazy and just bright as the sun. And she'd been doing this for 5 years, and she said to me, it doesn't mean anything, save yourself some time. They're just phenomena and experiences, nothing radically has changed, yeah? So this, you can't experience yourself into that. You can't think yourself into that. Yeah? And you can't feel yourself into that. To me, I got what I found here, just like when I had what we call a bottom in AA. A real bottom means there's no observer of you being in the bottom. There's no witness of you in the bottom. There's just bottom. It's like you're in a coffin. You're finally admitting how closed off you are. And there's no like someone saying, oh, you're closed off. No. There's no relief as being an observer or nothing. You finally get caught, yeah, almost in a sense. There's no way out. And in that way out, everything has the possibility of change. When you admit there is no way out, something finally fucking happens. Until that, you're still managing and still controlling. Yes? So you're caught and bound by your constantly wanting to escape. Every movement of escape is the bondage to self. I had no fucking idea, because I told you, I've never been a good spiritual practitioner, really. I'm not a good meditator, whatever that means. Nothing I've done I have never done anything completely except drug addiction. I did drug addiction completely. I was a perfect devotee of drug addiction. And I'll tell you, there's no transcendence. You can't get out of this place. If I could have, I would have with what I did. I was a devout drug user. Every day, I worshipped one thing and one thing over. I turned my will and my life over that. I had surrendered completely. I've given up all my possessions. I gave up your possessions to that. I basically had just surrendered to it, and there was no transcendence. Will any other method work here? There's no escape. And it sounds terrible to the thing that incessantly wants to escape, but it's great news for what you really, well, not even what you really are. It's just great news. Because finally, you'll see, your opinion of here is from there. You're listening to theirs take on here. To sense here is the immunity to there. To listen to there, here is what you want to escape from all the time. But here is the immunity to there. If you're not sensing here, you're at the mercy of there. And here will never be enough. It won't measure up to your mythical idea of the perfect moment, ever. There'll always be something lacking. There'll always be something else to move towards, something better, more loving, more blissful. It's never ending. Yeah? So I wanted every moment to escape from here, but the here I wanted to escape from was a mental here. It was made up by past and future, yes? It was made up by a mental realm, and the last place I wanted to be was conscious here. I would fucking shoot. One time, we thought we were copying some opium, me and my friend. We went to this heavy metal 3-day affair, and we met some guy on a bridge, and he sold us this thing that was supposed to be opium. We went back to the apartment, and when we opened it, and we started cooking, it smelled pretty fragrant, yeah? So then we shot it up, and then we were still like, talking ourselves into it. Are you feeling it yet? Are you feeling it? Nothing was happening, but we were talking about it. And then one of our girlfriends came in and says, it smells like incense here. Yeah? So we went, what? Oh yeah, who's burning incense? So the opium was incense. There was no opium. So what happened? We were faced with that evidence, and we shot it up again. We shot up fake incense with the hopes that it was opium. Even though it has been proven to us it was for incense, we said after 5 minutes, nope, we're going to do it again. This isn't fucking insanity. This is an extreme form of wanting to escape. Yes? Now someone may be sitting in a very nice house today, and in a very civilized way, it looks like they're here, but in their minds, it's another form of escaping. Yeah? Not here, because here's the solution. A mythical here, a mental here, made out of there. Yes? A moment that's bookended by your ideas of the past and your hopes and ideas about a future. That's not here. Here has no second, really. There was no there, and there's no will be in the here that's here. But the here that's of mind is made up of past and future. Yeah? And it's unbearable. So I want to escape from here. It was so scary to be conscious now when I was out there. I thought this giant, giant wall was going to collapse on me if I was caught without drugs in me. I was fucking petrified of being conscious. Yeah? Of here. But it wasn't the here that I've always been in. It was a mental presentation of here, made out of there and then. Jesus, I auctioned my whole life to an imaginary idea, in a sense. And of course, I didn't auction it. This was the play of this place. So now I've been in this recovery for 22 years, and what the hell, you know? I fell upon something that hadn't been offered in the program of recovery. I'd never heard it put this way. And it's now being mixed with Advaita. But I really truly believe the root of the dilemma is identification as self. It's a verb. It's not something that you were tattooed with 20 years ago, and now it's become a noun. It's a verb. It's an active mental process called selfing that produces an illusion that you're a noun here. That you're the noun that all of life is happening to. Yeah? Instead of feeling life happening through, it's seen as it's happening to, or for, or by, or as, yes? You. But it's very rarely felt like it's happening through. So for some reason, my seed assignment has been to going around meeting other people in recovery and sharing this idea. Yeah? With the hopes that maybe they'll travel a little lighter. Because if you have the flu, and it's misdiagnosed as a cold, it doesn't matter how much flu medicine you buy. nor how religiously you take it. The cold and the flu will have, there'll be some similar symptoms, but not all of them will be. So you will get a little relief, but it's not going to be the relief that's truly offered if the diagnosis was correct. If you spent $300 on cold medicine and you had a cold, you would expect to have some real radical relief if it was working, yeah? So for me, I just believe there's been a misdiagnosis of the problem. Obsession itself. I don't think that's the case. I think our mind identified itself to reinforce that, obsesses over it. Simple as that. Because it has to keep making it appear to be real. It's not real, so it can't stand on its own. It has to be fabricated every day. And what I believe assists that is the thoughts that are going on in your head. You know? Your daily narrative about life as seen from you. Listening to that is like you have your own hypnotist with you all day. All day you're just being swooned into unconsciousness. It's like you're out to fucking lunch. It always blows my mind when people go to work and they spend 8 hours there and then they come home and at 8 o'clock their mind tells them they had a bad day. I mean, wouldn't you know it was bad when it was batting? You know? I mean, if you were there, I would imagine you would see, hey, it's batting right now. Why is it that we're on like a 10-hour time delay to figure out what's going on? We have to wait for the mind to break the news to us. Oh, it was a bad day. Oh, thank you. And then you assume that it was, and you call up other people and see how their bad day went. And it's like we're fucking passing the disease on. And everyone's, yes, you got the disease. Yeah, you have the disease too. Yes, how's your disease? Oh, you're so special. No, it's like fucking, Jesus Christ. Yeah, sick begetting sick. And then there's unhealed healers running around like fucking crazy. They're not healed, but they're attempting to heal you. Jesus. It's insane. It's more sickness upon sickness. So, I don't know, I felt like I just tripped over something. Somebody introduced to me, and I like to say it was entertaining. It was like a very strong unspoken yes. That's what I felt like, yeah. Something in me that hadn't had much of a voice in my life, when it heard this message, chirped up. It said, oh, yeah. And I hadn't heard it like that in a while. Something like inside just went, yeah. So for some reason it started to entertain it. And as it was entertaining it, things were dawning on it, yeah. More and more dawning, more and more dawning. And what didn't make sense started making sense. And what wasn't seen started to be seen. Yeah? And then I started realizing that there's no way I could be out of the moment, so why try to be in it? Yeah? Why do I want another book that tells me how to get into the moment when I can't be out of the moment? And have you ever finished a self-help book? I don't think I have. You always read a few chapters and you go to the next self-help book. Let's see. But these books about getting into the moment, that's ridiculous. It's just reaffirming the lie that you could be out of the moment. And that's the mental realm. The mental realm is entertaining impossibilities. That you can be out of the moment. That something different could have happened in the past. Yes? And then speculating like a crazy fucking weatherman what it's going to be like for you in the future. You know, it's always stormy weather. So even if you're having a really nice day, you can't enjoy it because you're worried tomorrow probably won't be as nice. Yes? Jeez, it's incredible. I entertained it, and I'll tell you, if you've ever been a junkie, junkies are very pragmatic. You know, when I shut up, I wanted to get something. I wanted a bang. It was very simple, very direct communication. Big sensation. All right, I understand that. Yeah. I don't like these promises of, well, if you purify yourself in lifetimes and something. Fuck that. I want relief now. Yeah, and I don't want to have to do much for it. Yeah? And this is a beautiful message because it just tells me I'm not that which is seeking for something. And so a relaxation can come over me. And I find relaxing or surrendering from the path is the true path in a sense. Yeah? The path that does not have one step, that has no marks, there's no imprints, there's no impressions. You're always prior to anything that's arising. Always. There's never one time that something arises before you. Yeah? Not once, ever. Whatever is arising is in front of you. You're seeing it. Whatever arises is in front of you. You are seeing it. Nothing happens that way. You are that blatant seeing. It's not an effort for it, it's its nature. It's not a doing, and it's not a having. It's just a being. Awareness is being, awareness seeing. Yeah? Here. We call it being, but to me it's the being of seeing. Yeah? When I feel good, it's being seen. When I feel bad, it's been seen. Every freaking thought I've ever entertained was seen. Every sensation that happened through the body was seen. Before it was dissected and interpreted, dualistically separated, all of that activity was seen. Nothing came before the table that's laid on it. That's work. And that's that. What else are you going to do? Take 8 more hours of retreats? What's the point? There's more fun in the pool anyway. More fucking fun. Has anything changed? Has any meeting you've ever gone to, was there no seeing before you came, and then suddenly there was a seeing, and then it may have been an experience of seeing when you're in the meeting, but there's always been seeing. Yeah? Before you went to the meeting, during the meeting, after the meeting, it's fine. Because this is written out. If you go to meetings, you go to meetings. Yeah? That's the nature. It's like here, this is just a whole set of impressions that get imprinted on a screen of time and space. And it's called a life of this action figure. Yeah? The conditionings, where you came from, your DNA, all this stuff creates impressions. Those impressions get placed against the paper of time and space here, and they leave a mark, and that's your life. You have kids, you don't have kids. You have money, you don't have money. They're all just impressions, mental impressions imprinting themselves on a screen. But all of that is follows the seeing, and none of that affects the seeing. The most heinous act that you've seen to have ever committed has left no impression on seeing. The seeing didn't blink when you didn't pay your mother the money when you had it. It didn't. It didn't go, oh, he's crossed the line now. Oh, this is no good. Bad. No. It's living up to its nature, which is to see. What? It doesn't matter. Whatever arises. But whatever arises doesn't affect what's seeing it, yeah? How could it? If it had an effect on what's seeing it, that wouldn't be seeing. That would be looking. It would be a conditional seeing, looking. This is seeing. It's not affected by circumstances and situations. It just sees it. And that act of seeing, to me, is the life that I am. I can't say it's anything alike, because that would make it a noun. It's a verb. Yeah? Every moment it's just seeing. I can't entertain any point where it didn't see. Since I appeared as the piece on the Monopoly board, the boot, whatever, the Eiffel Tower, I have to see in hindsight all there's always been seeing. Prior to every event and everything that ever happened that I call my life, it was in the context of seeing. Which is my real mother and father? Is it this life, this content, or is it the context that's held it all? To me, the context is unconditional love in a sense, because it has no opinion. Whatever arises, it sees it. Yeah? Nothing it sees ever made it close its eyes. Never made it turn away. Never made it blink. Ooh, that's really bad. Yeah. It just sees. Can you imagine relying on that? Well, when and how do you rely on it? See it. Be seeing it. Be part of that. You're the verb. You're not a noun. The noun wants to have the verb. Once a noun has a verb, it ain't a verb anymore. It's made into a noun, isn't it? The truth. Enlightenment. Wakening up, whatever. As soon as this noun claims it, it becomes a noun. And the verb is lost. You can't acknowledge a verb as a noun. You don't get it. There's no way a noun can sense the movement and really sense and see the movement of verbing, because it's a noun. It's a structured, conceptual little honeycomb. Every time it senses the wind, it feels that it senses the wind as the wall. Yeah? It doesn't sense the wind as the wind. When wind's blowing through the beehive, all the walls think the wind's hitting that. That's not it. There's wind, but it's interpreting it wrong in a sense. Yeah? You know that wind. So like in AA, we did this stuff called service to get out of this self. Yeah? It's a nice free sample. And then at times I would do it, and how I describe it is, there you are in that selfings, and then you would put some interest on someone else, yeah? And that would bring you out of that selfing, and you'd feel available. Usually people would describe it as, I felt big, spacious, or light. It's just availability. That's what availability is like, yeah? When the noun is derobed and the verb shines through, yeah? And then when that availability was so, I sensed the presence. How can you not? Yeah? And then what occurred a lot of times, this would regroup, and I would look at that as an experience I had. I had this experience of being available to this newcomer, and I felt the presence of a higher power when I was doing that. But after hundreds of times of this, more than hundreds of times, and this could change your attitude like that in 5 minutes. You could have a huge story going on and do some service, and in less than 10 minutes, gratitude would arise. It was an incredible antidote, but it was still being misread. And at one point, I had that, did some service, sensed the availability, sensed the presence, and there was a recognition, I'm not, in a sense, by saying I'm not this. Yeah? I'm the presence that was being seen as a destination for the self that I'm not. Yeah? Then what happens is, instead of being self that's closed down and having to do something to get available, and having to do something that maybe feel a presence, you're now the presence that makes you always available, and you're of service. That's the nature of presence. It's of service because it's available. And really, that's all we're looking for. When you look at someone and you're holding the space for them to be everything that they're not, that's availability. And there's a presence there. And it has nothing to do with your little voice box. Oh, I'm being present, nothing. It seems to be really against your will most of the time. You're totally being overridden by something. And then there's usually either you resist it like crazy or you give up. You say, fuck it. Basically. I'm yours in a sense, whatever. It doesn't have to be joyous. You know what I mean? It's alright. I got it. Isn't it a different state? Yeah? If you're that presence, it's a totally different state than having an experience of presence. It becomes consistent. It's taken out of time, and it's taken out of doing and having. And in other words, it's always available at all times because it's always available in no time. Yeah? Totally different than an experience. Many minds rather have an experience of presence than to actually sense the presence as where they come from. I'm telling you, because it's more special to have an experience of it. You'll feel like you're really special if you have a big hit of presence. It'll feel like you've been lifted up. You have been lifted up to a height unknown by any other person who's not as special as you. Yeah? That's incredible. But just presence is like dog shit presence. It's nothing special. It's just being on all the time. But you get weaned off of the addiction to experiences and phenomena. You lose interest in it. You don't really care that advertising that you've missed out on something. It's pointless. It's like, I've never missed out on anything. Yeah? All that seeking and all that activity gets very tamed because you just sense what you're really looking for in all that activity. You sense satisfaction instead of the search for satisfaction. You sense satisfaction. And I'll tell you, you want to say, oh, you need a spiritual truth and everything, all you need is to feel satisfied. If you feel satisfied, a lot of, quote unquote, your behavior will change. Because most of it's based on irritability, restlessness, and discontent. You're just not fucking satisfied. Really. I mean, you can get into all the metaphysical descriptions. You're just not happy. You know? You've tried every formula they offer here and it hasn't worked out for you. And all you can do is go back and try them again and replace a certain person with a different person. But it's the same formula. Same being saved. And it's always going to fail you. And then hopefully, you know, you lift out of here. And basically, why my mind's chilled out is because I'm happy. There's no big metaphysical answer. I'm really here because I don't want to be anywhere else. Seriously. Yeah? The mind keeps presenting options, but I don't want to go on those vacations because they turn into hell. Yeah. Yeah, it's so nice. So a starting point's nice is that idea of being a long-lasting, independent, separate entity. Because I believe really that is the main frame of these mental states we can entertain. They're all the mental states we can entertain as a self is framed by self-centeredness. I really truly believe it's a limited system. It's a very small lens. And you can open up to other modalities that are many more possibilities available. Yes? Many more possibilities. Not I will be okay, but there's a sense of okayness now. Yeah? And it's not based on what you did or didn't do, so you can't lose it because you never had it. Yes? It's not something that you acquired by any doing. Therefore, if it neuters or freezes the idea that whatever I have, I can entertain, I can lose, because I have it. Yeah? It takes that right out. You don't have it, therefore you can't lose it. The whole dualistic system of mind, it short circuits. Yeah? And truly, the greatest, to me, short circuit is I'm not that. It takes it totally out of the dualistic thing of I'm not that, therefore I am. No, don't even go there. I'm not that. That's it. That to me is the act of what I am, seeing. Seeing what's arising. What's arising, I'm not, obviously. So the conclusion in the seeing is I'm not that. Where do you have to go to be what you are? That's what you are. The seeing of I'm not that. And it's a verb, so you can't settle in on it. You can't lay your head on it. You can't move in and call it yours. You can't privatize it. You can't own it. You can't fucking teach it. All you can do is maybe point it out. Even that's clumsy. My feeling, even in my small little seed assignment, it was a terrible career choice because I'm meant to become obsolete. There's no point for me in this job. Because if I'm successful, you won't come back. Literally. Unless you like me, that's fine, but you won't need anything. You become your own authority finally, in a sense. Not like a mental authority. But you recognize blue is blue and red is red. Do you need any more, someone to sort of, confirm that seeing? You see it, yeah. To me, that's confirmation enough. It's the seeing of it. Yeah? It's not the emphasis on the red, it's the seeing. The seeing you can be sure of. It's always the context of every event you've been in. It's been seen. Yeah? But not by you. You have been seen just like that chair has been seen in the event. You have been seen by seeing. This object has been noted by seeing. In a sense, this object is meditated by the seeing. Yeah? By the seeing occurring through it is, to me, the highest form of meditation. Because that seeing is constantly, prior to even breathing, yes, the seeing. And it's not a dualistic movement. It's not an inhale-exhale. It's totally on without any deviation. It's always so. So it's hard to recognize, yeah? So the best cook is when they decide to not give you that much, you know? They turn off the oven and let it cook. You don't need any more. Yeah. To go over and over and over it again to dry out the meat. Yeah. That's that. Water bottle. Drink. Thirst quenched. Teacher, please explain what happened. I know, but I don't trust that knowing. Tell me what it means. I was thirsty and you quenched your thirst. What's that? It's got to mean more. No. Sorry. But didn't I choose? Didn't I have something to do with it? Didn't I buy this bottle? No, someone actually gave it to me. What role do I have to play with it? There's a very thin line between insanity. I hope someone tells me when I cross it. I don't want to be surprised by white people in an ambulance. Yes, Paul, we're going to have a meeting. We want you to speak at, oh, yeah. They're waiting. I thought you needed to hear something from me. No, go. You gotta laugh about this place, don't you? Yeah. I do anyway. It's hilarious. And in recovery, we have one rule. We call it Rule 62. Don't take yourself too seriously. Freedom from self is not a big deal either. Oh, that's really important. No, it isn't really. Well, I'm really happy that everyone was here. I'm really happy that I got a chance to come here. I feel like I know Marcus and Lila and this place. This place has been, it's like I know of this compound for some reason. As soon as I walked in, I felt like I've been a witness to many experiences here. Yeah, it was really strange. It's a very strong sensation. My job's over now. I can relax. It's great. It was very unsuccessful. No one showed up. But I was here, exactly. No one showed up. No. Usually I have to, pay family members to go. Unlike the when am I going to get it? No one likes me. Stop coming. Say no to these invitations. You think you can pack them in, Paul? No, I can't. You better get Muji or somebody else. Get somebody who's attractive. I'm a very unusual taste, I guess. But you can say you knew me when I was small and unimportant. Because maybe later I'll have an inner circle and you won't even get in. We'll be having to sit here for 5 minutes so I can get out of here, so I have no touch with anyone. No hugging me. No. Oh, a special entourage. I can't even get someone to pick me up at the airport. Fuck. Talk about entourage. I go home to San Francisco, they don't give a shit. They see me 3 times a week. You've been away, Paul? Yeah, I've been away. 18 days. Oh shit, I didn't even miss you. It's worked. You want to stay humble, be involved in AA. Yeah, it's a very humbling experience. Yeah. If you stop meetings, they just don't come. If I miss 2 weeks, they'll be like, it never even happened. They've been coming for 2 years, but if I'm away 2 weeks, it's like it never happened. A whole new crew comes. That's incredible. Paul who? It's funny as hell. When I came in here, I thought this was a profound message. I really thought I was helping people. Oh, shit. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome, honey. Thank you very much. It's not over yet. You can't get rid of me till later. 4 in the morning, I'm going to sneak away like a thief in the night with Marcus. Drop my ass over. Ryanair to Sweden. They try to sell you every freaking thing, every 5 minutes. Yes, and we have raffle tickets here. We have scratch 'em. You can get 2 for £10. Or something like that. And you may win, and then, all right, we have more drinks. You just been by. I know, but we have cappuccino. Yeah. You can buy a card that will allow you to have 2 visits to the bathroom. Yes, after one, it's cost you money. What do you mean? You can't put some money in there. Fuck. Incredible. Yeah. The regulations for what you could bring and not bring was bigger than anything else. Nothing over 10 pounds, certain centimeters, 100 millimeters. If not, you can't get on the plane. It's incredible. Fucking, it's a trip. I paid money. Give me some service. Fuck. That's funny. Well, I'm happy you came today, yeah?
Thank you, I'm happy I came.
Good. The homeboys back there. My AA brethren, my tribe. We're starting a new cult in AA. Yeah. See how it goes. We're just attempting to put a new idea in there. I'm not trying that, but that's what's happening. Just maybe adding a different view of the dilemma by bringing it back to identification or so. I really believe even in this place, doing steps and everything, it can produce a traveling lighter as the action figure. And shit, that's cool. If you've been in that sort of suffering, just even a little bit of relief means a whole lot. Because this is a subjective experience, When a person doesn't have a place to sleep at night, and he finds that refrigerator box, that's a huge event for that person. That brings that person joy. And it gives them a sense of security that people get from having a house. You get a passing sense of security. Hey, I have a place to sleep tonight outside the elements. Who's to say which is what? It's all subjective. So in one sense, someone here, identified as this, is producing exquisite suffering, and their beautiful days of Mount Everest look like nothing to you and I, maybe. Maybe they found a quarter. That's a big event. Maybe they found half of a cigarette. That's a huge event. Maybe somebody left a coffee cup with a little coffee in it. Huge event. Maybe they get close to the front of the line at the soup kitchen. Those are just like successes you have on a business day. It's the same. It's all subjective. Based on the conditions and circumstances you're living from. So what you would call that's nothing, to them it's everything. Yeah? And who's to dispute?